Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's LEAD Center webinar, How WIOA Can Support Workers Facing Economic Challenges. For those of you who are new to us, the LEAD Center is led by Social Policy Research Associates and National Disability Institute and is funded by the Office of Disability Employment Policy. Before we get started today, we want to offer you a few captioning and housekeeping tips. Today's event is captioned. Use the controls above the captioning stream to adjust font and sizing. Use the scroll arrows to review earlier content. We also have a chat. If you have questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat pod below the slides. We'll save time at the end for a Q&A. And for technical support, if you do experience any technical issues or have questions for the technical support team, use the controls in the upper ribbon to raise your hand. My name is Elizabeth Jennings. I'm going to be your moderator today. And to kick off our day today, we would like to welcome the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Office of Disability Employment Policy at the U.S. Department of Labor, Jennifer Sheehy. The mission of ODEP is to develop policy that increases job opportunities for youth and adults with disabilities. Prior to her current position, Jennifer spent 10 years at the U.S. Department of Education in many roles, including acting director of the National Institute on Disability and Rehabilitation Research, acting deputy commissioner of the Rehabilitation Services Administration, and special assistant to the Assistant Secretary of the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services. Jennifer came to the Department of Education from the Presidential Task Force on Employment of Adults with Disabilities, where she was Senior Policy Advisor and served a detail as Associate Director in the White House Domestic Policy Council. Before she joined the task force, Jennifer was Vice President of the National Organization on Disability and Director of its CEO Council. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for being with us today.
Thank you. This is a terrific topic, and I'm really, really proud to be part of this. And I want to thank our LEAD Center for hosting it and for all the valuable work that you do, and of course our team for the work that we've been doing, but also the subject matter experts and the presenters today. You guys know how critical this topic is, and I think we'll learn some useful tips and resources, and I look forward to learning more myself about this. So I am Jennifer Sheehy, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy, or as we call ourselves, ODEP. I hope that you and your families are staying safe and healthy at this time. It's an unusual time, of course, to say it mildly. ODEP and the Department of Labor recognize the many sacrifices Americans are making to flatten the curve and help ensure strong communities during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. ODEP and its technical assistance centers are regularly posting resources to help individuals with disabilities and families with individuals with disabilities and all families during this time. And I urge you to check out our website at www.dol.gov/ODEP to learn more. Again, that's www.dol.gov/ODEP. Let me tell you a little bit about our work. ODEP is the only non-regulatory federal agency that promotes policies and coordinates with employers and all levels of government organizations to increase workplace success for people with disabilities. ODEP funds the National Center on Leadership for the Employment and Economic Advancement of People with Disabilities, more easily called the LEAD Center, which is sponsoring today's webinar. And implementation of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, is one of our main priorities. We continue to work with our federal and state partners to create a variety of tools and resources to enhance the workforce system and help the partners implement the provisions that are still somewhat new to many at the ground level. There were a lot of new provisions. There were a lot of strong provisions that help ensure equity and access to people with disabilities, and it can be complicated, and we want to help. So during today's webinar, we will hear from speakers who are working hard to provide financial literacy supports and services to individuals with disabilities by using the provisions of WIOA and the existing workforce system structure in their state. This is always a very popular topic, and it's more relevant right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the current economic situation faced by many American workers. But before we get started, I want to take this opportunity to let you know about another important anniversary that's happening this year. ODEP is working on a series of events and resources to commemorate the, I can't believe it, 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, which was signed into law in July of 1990. The ADA, as you know, is a civil rights law that prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life, including jobs, schools, transportation, and all public and private places that are open to the general public. The purpose of the law is to make sure that people with disabilities have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else. And now more than ever, this couldn't be more critical. We invite you to learn more about the ADA during this milestone year, and you can bookmark our website because we will be sharing more information about our events and resources soon. With that, I will turn it over to our webinar speakers to tell us a bit more about the WIOA and financial literacy strategies for workers with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. We greatly appreciate you being with us today and for that incredible reminder about the importance of this year. Today we're going to turn it over to our speakers in just a minute, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page about our learning goals for today. So our goal today is that you learn about allowable WIOA financial literacy education activities. We're going to introduce you to two speakers, so actually three speakers, so you can learn from other workforce professionals about activities delivered through AJCs in Michigan and New York. And we're going to offer you resources to adopt and replicate these practices through your own workforce activities. Today's incredible speakers include Donnie Herber, the Special Initiatives Manager with Youth Opportunities Unlimited, Alan Sessions, Disability Resource Coordinator with CDO Workforce, Kathy D'Angelo, Disability Resource Coordinator, also with CDO Workforce, and again myself, Elizabeth Jennings, your moderator and the Acting Executive Director of National Disability Center, the National Disability Institute, here with you representing the LEAD Center. So just to make sure we're all on the same page about the WIOA financial literacy education activities, I want to share with you what WIOA does to support the provision of financial literacy education activities. For youth, financial literacy education is one of 14 mandated services that must be available to youth participants. However, even though they must be available, local programs are not required to provide every program service to each participant. Local programs have the flexibility to determine which specific program services, including financial literacy education, a youth participant receives based on objective assessments and the development of an individual services strategy. A bit differently for adults, financial literacy education activities can be provided to adults when determined appropriate based on the job seeker's individual employment plan. The individual employment plan indicates the appropriate combination of services the job seeker will receive to meet their employment goals and objectives, and can include skills development to attain career objectives, individual and group counseling, short-term pre-vocational services, communication and interviewing skills, internships and work experience, and key to today's discussion, financial literacy services. So let's take a moment to look together at what counts as allowable financial literacy education activities. There are 9 defined program elements in the final rule to describe financial literacy education activities. The first is to support the ability of participants to create budgets, initiate checking and savings accounts at banks, and make informed financial decisions. Second, there's supporting participants in learning how to effectively manage spending, credit, and debt, including student loans, consumer credit, and credit cards. Number 3, understanding and improving or maintaining good credit reports and credit scores offers the option to teach participants about the significance of credit reports and credit scores, what their rights are regarding their credit and financial information, how to determine the accuracy of a credit report, and how to correct inaccuracies, along with how to improve or maintain good credit. The fourth activity supports a participant's ability to understand, evaluate, and compare financial products, services, and opportunities to make informed financial decisions. The fifth allows you to educate participants about identity theft, ways to protect themselves from identity theft, how to resolve cases of identity theft, and to help individuals understand their rights and protections related to personal identity and financial data. Number 6 looks at supporting activities that address the particular financial literacy needs of non-English speakers, including providing support through the development and distribution of multilingual financial literacy and education materials. Number 7, benefits planning and work incentives counseling for youth with disabilities supports activities that address the particular financial literacy needs of youth with disabilities, including connecting them to benefits planning and work incentives counseling, particularly important for those who need to make informed benefits decisions before they go to work or increase their work efforts. Number 8 looks at age-appropriate and timely financial education with opportunities to put lessons into practice, and that includes providing financial education that is age-appropriate, timely, and provides opportunities to put lessons into practice, such as access to safe and affordable financial products that enable money management and savings. And last but not least, number 9 suggests that you support participants to make informed financial decisions that enable them to attain greater financial health and stability. And this can include implementing other approaches to help participants gain the knowledge, skills, and really importantly, the confidence they need to make informed financial decisions so that they are enabled to attain greater financial health and stability by using high-quality, age-appropriate, and relevant strategies and channels, including, where possible, timely and customized information, guidance, tools, and instruction. Now, some of this may be new to some of you. Some of you may be very familiar with the 9 activities, but we wanted to make sure you all were aware of them so that you can recognize them as our speakers move forward. But before we turn to our speakers, I just want to take a moment to mention the importance of WIOA during this COVID-19 pandemic. We know that millions of people are experiencing unemployment and financial instability, and WIOA financial literacy activities can offer a set of services that support individuals as they make difficult financial decisions and use new income to improve their financial stability. So now more than ever, we want to make sure that you have resources that you can use. And to start that, we offer you the chance to explore our recent webinar of financial strategies for workers with disabilities during the COVID-19 pandemic. You can find it on our website in our archives at www.leadcenter.org/webinars/archived. You can also explore other financial tools at our website. But let's now turn to our guests so we can learn more about the financial literacy education activities that they're providing to job seekers in their local areas. So I first want to welcome Alan Sessions oh, I'm so sorry. I first want to welcome Donnie Herber, who's the Special Initiatives Manager of Youth Opportunities Unlimited. Donnie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Elizabeth. So my name is Donnie Herber. I am coming to you all from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm excited to share some of the activities that we provide for our youth participants. So Youth Opportunities Unlimited is the organization I work for. We operate the WIOA Youth Service Program, and we're going to share some of the activities and discussions that we tailor for our young people to make financial literacy relevant in their lives and for their future. So first, as an introduction to what financial literacy is, at the intake process, we go through what the 14 program elements are for WIOA, which obviously includes financial literacy. So we very briefly just touch on what kind of activities we may provide throughout the participants' active participation in WIOA. And then if a participant during the intake says, hey, that's something I'm really interested in, I've always wanted to learn how to better manage my finances, can you help me? We'll make note of that, and then as a career coaching staff, we'll make that a point of emphasis once they're enrolled. The biggest thing that we want to make sure that our participants understand is that we're here to build relationships before we are building any budgets or helping them make informed financial decisions. We make it clear to our youth that the goal of their WIOA enrollment is to help them achieve their career goals. While yes, some of that does include making more informed decisions financially, we want to make sure that we have built that relationship before we move into any sensitive discussions about how they can save more money, how they can budget for certain things, and just understand that we are there for them to help support their journey. Another thing that we want to make sure that we are touching base with is the cultural and social awareness about where our youth are coming from and what's in their current mind frame of financial literacy and just the institution of money. So if we have a young person who is the breadwinner of their family at 16 or 17, we need to understand that and realize that they may not be thinking towards their future. They're trying to make sure their siblings and their parents are taken care of. We want to make sure we're aware of that and relay that information appropriately to this participant. Another thing, not everyone wants to go to a bank or a credit union, and we want to make sure that we respect that. Ultimately, the money that we're helping the youth identify employers to get hired in at or internships that we provide, that's going to be money that the young person earns, and we want to respect that and to respect their what they would like to do with it. We also acknowledge the sensitive nature of money talks. Again, the participant is the one earning their money. They ultimately will get to decide how to spend or save it. Our goal is to make them aware of community resources, some financial literacy topics, and help them identify ways that they can feel confident in their knowledge of their own finances. And the community resources. So early in their participation with our WIOA Youth Service Program, we want to let the participant know up front there will be some community events promoted. We might bring attention to community organizations that may have funds to assist in certain areas like clothing vouchers or our supportive service dollars, another program element through WIOA. But we want to make sure we cover that up front so the youth knows what services are available and what financial literacy topics will be discussed in their participation. So how WIOU implements financial literacy for our youth participants? A couple ways. First is through group presentations. So that could be either internal staff or having guest presenters come to our service center. So for internal staff, we would cover topics with a group of participants that seem interested. We'd promote it to all of our participants, not making it mandatory, but making sure that they understand this is going to be with one of our staff they've built that relationship with. They have that trusting relationship with us. We want to make sure that we are giving that information to all of our participants. These group presentations by our staff will be informational and broad and not getting into the individual's financial situation. And again, it just allows for the participants to continue to build on that trusting relationship with our staff and opening that door for those sensitive discussions about their finances. Guest presenters from the community come to our service center and, again, cover broad financial literacy topics. We find that this allows for the participants to gain more comfort with our community partners, become more aware of community resources, and then also engage with other participants. It's always nice to have, 7 to 10 17-year-olds talking about financial literacy than just one, right? And you have somebody on that level going through it with them. So we try to engage those broad conversations with all of our participants at once. Some of the community events that we may promote would be FAFSA and scholarship events, events that would bring awareness to other community finances, like Show Me the Money events where they can find out jobs that are hiring for the summer, jobs that are hiring right now, and just identifying community resources that may have some supportive service dollars that can help them identify ways to save money in the future. Again, it may not be something that our staff would attend for those events, but we just want our participants to feel connected in the community and know that financial literacy and financial literacy activities are something that the entire community will engage on. Some of the individual conversations with our career coaches is really where we get to breaking down barriers, if you will, for financial literacy and diving into some of those issues that youth may not have brought up with anybody else before, or may not understood or felt comfortable asking questions about in a larger group context. So we want to make sure we're meeting them where they're at. If we have a participant who, again, I'll go back to the example of a 17-year-old who's the breadwinner for their family, we don't want to start thinking about retirement and really making a game plan for that. We want to open their eyes to it, but we want to make sure that we're trying to provide relevant topics, relevant resources to help them stabilize their family for the next coming weeks, next couple of months, and then again start building towards their own future. The youth may come to us for guidance on certain topics. Hey, Mr. Downey, I'd like to open a bank account, or I have some overdraft fees, or I don't know how to write a check. Little things like that we would address, again, individually, but we want to meet the participant where they're at and let that guide our discussion. We don't ever want to kind of take for assumption where we think the youth could use some guidance. We want to make sure that the youth is in control of their journey, and we're allowing that to flow our conversation. One of the biggest discussions that we have, I'd say at least weekly with our participants, is budgeting. So when we provide supportive, just an example of how we have budgeting conversations, when we provide supportive services to our participants, we always bring up budgeting. This may be the first time the participant has even ever heard the word budget. So we want to be mindful of that, and we want to make sure that this is a learning process. If that's the first time somebody's heard of it, we're not expecting them to be masters of a budget by the time they get a second paycheck. So if we provide, in an example, 10 bus tokens for a participant for their week of work through our supportive service dollars, we'll discuss a budget plan for that participant to save enough money to provide for 5 bus tokens their next week of work. Then our supportive service dollars will provide the other 5 to get to and from work. We want to make sure that we are in this process with the participant, that we're not expecting them to be masters of a budget after one paycheck. But we want to get them thinking about, okay, if WIOA is going to help me, I need to start making some progress, and here's how we can do it. We pay for half, you pay for half. Another discussion that we will have with our participants is wants versus needs. So our career coaches, again, after the trusting relationship has been built with the participant, will start to have discussions about future purchases that may be helpful for the youth's career, keeping in mind the context of wants versus needs. So an example of that, the employer you really want to work for is not on the public transit line. So let's start a budget plan that's helping you get your own vehicle. You can save some extra cash from going out with friends' money and continue to spend the same amount of money on your grocery or your rent, which is the essential needs, not a want. Planning for the unexpected. That is something none of us like planning for the unexpected, but it's just wise so that when that rainy day does come, we're not totally out of luck or totally thrown out of our loop. So we would just want to make participants aware of worst case scenarios. So again, using the example of purchasing a vehicle, great, you just bought your first car, that's wonderful. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but cars have issues sometimes. You're going to want to save some money for potential car repairs. Many of our participants might not have ever thought about that, or not thought 6 weeks in advance for a potential oil change or flat tire. So we want to make sure our participants do understand unexpected things come up. All right, and how we follow up with financial literacy with our participants is just checking in, like I said, weekly, bi-weekly, and depending on how that participant gets paid, of what's working and what's not working. Help them have a game plan for when they do get paid, so that when they get their paycheck, they're not being told by their money where it's going. We want our participants to feel empowered to tell their money where it's going to be used. Again, just kind of having that conversation of what expected things came up. Sometimes we'll have that light bulb moment like, oh, thank you for bringing awareness to an increase in gas prices. Obviously not that happening right now, but we want our participants to know sometimes things come up and that you might have to adjust your budget accordingly. I'd say the most important piece of following up with our participants is giving space. If the participant clearly does not want to talk about some of these things, we really don't want to be a burden in that way. We want to give them space. Again, remembering this is a sensitive topic. Our main goal of getting them enrolled into WIOA is to encourage self-sufficiency along their career journey. So youth may need the space to process some of these financial literacy topics we've covered, some of these community events that they've seen. They might need the space to process that on their own. That's okay, and frankly, it's encouraged. It's their money, it's their future, it's their career. We want them to be in control of that and understand ways that are relevant for them. And again, always supporting and encouraging our participants. Being financially literate and building budgets, saving for your future, that's a lifelong journey. That's something that all of us as WIOA professionals and youth development and workforce development professionals all still have to work with in our personal lives. One group presentation is not going to set our participants up financially for life. We're providing the tools and the resources necessary to encourage wise financial decisions for our participants, and we just want to be alongside of them so when they have those questions, we're right there and we can share some of the wise resources in our community to help better their future. And now I will give it back to Elizabeth. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you, Donnie, so much for those great practical approaches to providing financial literacy education activities. You said it best, Donnie. Money conversations are uncomfortable, and I really appreciate you sharing with us the simple strategy of letting all youth know the services that you offer so they can participate, and then things can be individualized to meet them where they are. If you have a question for Donnie and some of the strategies that he shared, please be sure to put it in the chat box, and we'll do our best to get your question moved forward before the end of our time today. I now want to hand it over to Kathy D'Angelo and Alan Sessions, who are both from the Chenango, Delaware OTSEGO workforce in New York.
Thank you, Elizabeth. As you know, I've been a disability resource coordinator since 2010 when New York State received a Round 1 DEI grant. And financial literacy was one of the required components that we were required to provide. And I've been lucky enough to continue working in this role after our grant ended, and our agency has continued to evolve how we provide financial literacy information to folks. 2 years ago, we were excited to receive Round 8 DEI funding to work with youth who had disabilities. My colleague on the call, Alan Sessions, leads this youth project. And we're here to talk about some of the financial literacy best practices we have discovered during the DEI projects. So Alan, can you advance the slide? Great. Okay. One of the biggest lessons we learned is that collaboration with financial experts in different agencies and different financial institutions usually yields the best results. As anyone who knows me personally, money management has never been my personal forte. Alan, can you tell us a little bit about how our bi-monthly financial literacy workshops for folks receiving Social Security entitlements came about?
Thank you, Kathy. Yes. I received a call from a local human service case manager. She had been a customer of both Kathy and myself, and she was seeking a partner for the New York State Office of Mental Health presentation on Social Security programs for individuals with disabilities, PASS plans, and Medicaid buy-in. The goal of the presentation was to empower individuals with disabilities with accurate information, which would allow them to make informed decisions to support their life goals. CDO Workforce immediately agreed to partner and provided marketing, presentation space, and audiovisual equipment. The CDO Workforce agreed to provide information about our services, such as our monthly workshops on interviewing skills, resume writing, disclosing a disability. We also presented information about our resource room and what was available there and our adaptive equipment list. We also talked to the attendees about special recruitments that were going on in the office. We had a number of businesses coming in and doing a specific recruitment for their business. We also promoted upcoming job fairs and talked to the attendees about partner agencies that were on site and additional services. Plus, we had an opportunity to introduce participants to ABLE accounts, Achieving a Better Life Experience. ABLE accounts allow individuals who have a disability with an onset before their 26th birthday to save money and invest money without affecting their federally provided benefits. These funds can be used for qualified disability expenses, which includes housing, health and wellness, employment training, and support. We will discuss ABLE benefits further in this presentation. Kathy, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I do, because we were extremely surprised at the popularity of these sessions. We had 20+ participants at every single workshop, and the audience was comprised of different people than we expected. We did have beneficiaries, of course, but their parents came, their spouses came. We had local human service agency workers, including job coaches and care managers. We didn't realize how many people were trying to get accurate information and understanding of Social Security forms, incentives such as PASS plans, and how work affects their medical insurance, whether they get Medicare or Medicaid buy-in, what is 1619B. It was incredibly surprising to us about how much people had misinformation. Okay. Oh, you flipped to me. Look at you. So the next thing we want to talk about is other types of financial education we've done, specifically targeting youth. And we found that the topic of any kind of financial planning, credit management, any of those things were difficult for young people, especially for those who were low income or if they were struggling with their disabilities. Often these young adults are in situations where concepts like having extra money to save or even having a bank account are just not part of their experience. And over the years, we've partnered with several financial institutions, but our most successful presentations over the past few years have been partnering with a local credit union. Alan, would you like to explain?
Thank you, Kathy. Kathy and I were introduced to a credit union called SEFCU. It's a state employee federal credit union. And they had an Institute for Financial Well-Being. And we found out about them in 2017. SEFCU provides a catalog of courses on their website for youth and adults centered around banking, credit, and savings topics. The courses can be mixed and matched according to the audience and SEFCU provided us with a 90-minute presentation to 12 participants in a job readiness program. The presentation covered debit versus credit cards, credit scores, loans versus grants, and general banking and savings information. What made SEFCU different from other banks' financial literacy programs was their use of games and online activities to engage young people and increase their knowledge of banking. This resulted in a couple of youth opening bank accounts and exploring ABLE accounts. CDO Workforce has offered SEFCU courses to out-of-school youth and some parents in our summer youth employment program. Feedback has always been positive, and the SEFCU workbooks have never been left behind at the end of a presentation. Kathy, do you have anything else to add?
Well, that's always a good sign when they take the materials with them, isn't it? Yes, I agree. But if you go to the next slide, I would be glad to update about our other partners. Under Round 8, we have 2 other projects that are also providing financial education, and they're utilizing partners in their region. So we just wanted to update folks about these. Hempstead Works in Long Island has used a variety of organizations, including a bank, a credit union, local employer, as well as education partners to create workshops for young people on a variety of financial topics. Tompkins Workforce in Ithaca, New York, has partnered with their business leaders to provide money management, business ownership, and also have provided virtual webinars on a variety of financial topics. Next slide. Oh, very good. All right. Another vital partnership that has greatly impacted our community was the establishment of the Delaware and OTSEGO Cash Coalition. For those of you that might not know, CASH stands for Creating Assets, Savings, and Hope. Giving someone hope for the future and their future financial security is a wonderful thing. Our coalition's mission is to collaborate across local agencies, banking institutions, educational, and other partners to help community members achieve financial stability. Our primary focus has been to provide free income tax preparation for our neighbors. This coalition was created under Round 1 of our DEI project, with United Way being the lead sponsor. At that time, in 2010, there were no volunteer income tax preparation sites, VITA sites. There were none in either of our counties. The success of this project was because of a relationship built between SUNY Oneonta and our coalition. A professor of business who had previously participated in a VITA program recruited students from their business and accounting club at SUNY Oneonta, and he helped get them trained. Over the years, we have established several VITA tax preparation sites, and SUNY Oneonta has established internships for those students who oversee these sites. Our coalition also has promoted the My Free Taxes initiative along with VITA sites. And My Free Taxes allows individuals to prepare and file their own federal and state taxes for free. We utilize our Workforce Center resource room computers and make them available to people who want to file their own taxes, and we let them print out their returns free of charge. We use a variety of methods to promote free tax preparation, including traditional newspapers, flyers to human service agencies, but we also email our local businesses, and we send information to the colleges as well as part of our process, and we have a big social media blitz every year. In addition to our free tax preparation, our Cash Coalition is looking to other ways to promote financial resiliency. Alan, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. The Cash Coalition began discussions about developing individual development accounts that can be incorporated into local banks and credit union services. Individual development banks are asset building tools for low-income families to save money towards home ownership and other large purchases. The key to individual development accounts is providing matching funds to savings from low-income families. This matching encourages savings and grows the savings faster. We collaborated with the Otsego County Chamber of Commerce and the local United Way on this effort. The Otsego County Chamber of Commerce expressed willingness to convene a meeting with local banks and credit unions to plan and develop local IDAs. Unfortunately, we were unable to immediately find a resource that could provide the matching funds. So we continue to explore other funding options at this time. Recently, a local community fund has had an influx of money due to the COVID-19 crisis, and we plan to make a funding proposal, of course, after more immediate projects are funded, and we're very hopeful in this process. Moving on to the next slide.
One more slide, Alan.
Oh, I didn't.
There we go. Okay.
Sorry.
I got it. Way back in round one of the DEI project, the New York State Department of Labor grant manager had the foresight to require disability resource coordinators to be trained to understand Social Security programs, their rules, and the financial impact to beneficiaries when they return to work. Currently, all DRCs in Round 8 project have become certified work incentive practitioners, joining dozens of previous New York State colleagues who have worked on these grants. Many of us are still employed at workforce centers, providing an essential support that allows Social Security beneficiaries to make a successful transition back to work. If anyone on this call knows someone who is a Social Security disability or an SSI recipient who has returned to the workforce, you can understand when I talk about the onslaught of letters and paperwork that gets generated from the Social Security Administration when a beneficiary reports that first paycheck. We offer individualized services to beneficiaries, including accepting the assignment of ticket to work, helping to track their income, teaching them how to report wages to Social Security. We help them set up an online MySSA account where they can report electronically their wages. We assist them with completing Social Security work reports. We help them file appeals or requests for waivers. And we have also written past plans to achieve self-support. We really believe that having a certified work incentive practitioner in a workforce center is a really, really strong practice. Next slide, Alan. Okay, Alan, I'll turn it over to you to talk about achieving better life experience, or as they are better known, ABLE accounts.
Thank you, Kathy. One of the most exciting legislative changes to help people with disabilities save money and to reach their dreams was the establishment of ABLE accounts, Achieving a Better Life Experience. The ABLE Act of 2014 allows those with disabilities to save for qualified disability expenses, tax-free and without risk of losing benefits from federal assistance programs. To be eligible, the individual's disability must be present before the age of 26, and the individual must be entitled to SSI or SSDI, or the individual must have a written diagnosis from a doctor. Proof of eligibility is not required to open an account. However, eligible individuals should maintain a benefit verification letter or a record of diagnosis should they need to prove their eligibility later. Over 40 states have accounts available, and some are open to out-of-state residents. So there's a lot of options out there. More information about ABLE and different states' programs and eligibility is available on the ABLE National Resource Center website, and that's www.ablenrc.org. We have included a roadmap that is on the National ABLE Resource Network website. The roadmap provides information about ABLE accounts, eligibility, use for funds, opening and managing accounts. In our center, we have been promoting ABLE accounts in our social media posts, especially our success stories. We've also posted in our newsletter and on our website. We have included ABLE information in workshops and community presentations, and we partnered with the OTSEGO Chamber to promote ABLE information to employees of their member businesses. We also provide an array of handouts. We provide them at job fairs, at the center's resource room, and at community events, especially at financial literacy related events. Kathy, I think that completes our presentation.
I think you're right. We're going to throw it right back to you, Elizabeth.
Excellent. Kathy and Alan, thank you so much for the overview of several of your financial literacy education activities, and also for walking us through some of the many partnerships that you even threw in some other New York workforce centers that all of you have leveraged these partnerships to make new activities and to bring financial experts in to support your activities. For those of you who are listening from around the country, I just want to point out that there's 3 strategies that Alan and Kathy noted that you can look for in your own local area, and that's connecting with banks and credit unions. Cash coalitions are not unique to the state of New York, so you can look for them in your own state and local area. And volunteer income tax assistance sites can be easily found through the IRS website. We're now going to take some time for some of your questions that have come through the chat box. A big shout out to Donnie, who has answered a few of your questions in the chat box already. But let's get started, and we'll throw one out to Donnie to kick us off here. So Donnie, one question that came in for you is, how do you assist your participants to stay on track with their budgets?
So staying on track with the budget, we try to maintain contact with them when they get paid. So when they have a game plan for what's going to happen with their paycheck, so that they're not, once they get their paycheck, then deciding what am I going to do with this money. So we try to be in touch with them that week leading up to payday, and just making sure they have a game plan for what it is they want to do. And again, giving space if they, I want to spend my money the way I want to. We want to respect that, but just in helping them envision that game plan for that Friday. What are they going to do with their paycheck, instead of next thing you know, it's Saturday morning and there's only $10 left on their card. We want to make sure they have a game plan for that throughout the week of payday.
Thank you, Donnie. Let's send a question over to Kathy and Alan. Can you tell us about a story of a customer that successfully utilized an ABLE account?
I would be glad to, Elizabeth. These are my favorite parts of these presentations, so that you can actually see somebody utilize the services and have success. I'm going to tell you Sarah's story. And Sarah was a 19-year-old recent high school graduate who received SSI and came to CDO with her mom looking for help to get a job. She was not interested in college or training, but the one thing she told us was that she wanted to save money to move out of her parents' house. Initially, we enrolled her in our TANF summer youth program, and she did clerical work at a human service agency. And then following that, in the fall, we enrolled her in our WIOA out-of-school youth program. She participated in a couple of paid work experiences, and she took 2 5-week online certificate courses on accounting principles and on spreadsheets, because she told us that she was good with numbers. And she was good with numbers. She successfully did all that. And at both work sites, they had her doing accounting type paperwork. And so these activities then led to seasonal employment for a couple of years for her as a tax preparer. And she was able to transition off her SSI during these months, and I was able to help her watch that and budget to make sure she had enough money. And she also worked for our agency for 2 summers after tax season, processing paperwork under our summer youth program. Now, at the end of the second year, Sarah became pregnant, and she wound up out of work and back on SSI and TANF payments to support her daughter, and she was still living with her parents. But because of the good relationship that we had, she returned to CDO workforce to look for full-time work as soon as she was able to. And she was quickly hired by her local accounting firm to provide clerical support and to maintain customer financial records. Alan and I both talked to her about ABLE accounts, and because she was afraid that if she put this money in the bank, it was going to affect her Medicaid. And so we talked to her about all of that and encouraged her to look at the ABLE website. And her mom together opened an ABLE account, and her mom put $100 in there to start her savings. And she filled out paperwork with her job to have $50 biweekly directly deposited into her account, her ABLE account. And last year, when she filed her taxes, she got a big tax refund and an earned income tax credit, an EITC payment, and she took the entire amount and put it in her ABLE account. In 15 months, she had accumulated over $5,000 in that savings account. This is a girl that was on SSI for her whole life. And she no longer needed SSI. She certainly didn't need TANF to support her daughter. She was doing that. And they were both still receiving their Medicaid benefits. And because she had established a regular savings plan and established that strong credit profile, instead of looking for an apartment, Sarah contacted local realtors this past fall about the possibility of buying a house. And we talked to her about first-time home buyers, and she went to her bank and she was pre-approved for a mortgage. And she's now put her down payment on her first home, and she hopes to close in the near future. Great story, right?
That's an incredible story, Kathy. Thank you so much. I love that your customer got all this support and that she made a planned exit from the benefit roles and that she's able to be a homeowner. Congratulations to all of you and to her. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and bring us back to Donnie. Donnie, we had a couple questions that I think blend nicely together. I know you answered one in the chat, but maybe you could just share a little bit more. So folks want to know how often do you have guest presenters on financial literacy? And maybe you could also share with them, when do you typically have somebody join a presentation on financial literacy? Does it happen before they go to work? What's your timeline for that?
So for a guest presenter, we definitely will have a FAFSA event, especially for the students that are getting close to graduating, just to bring awareness to FAFSA and helping them identify what documents they'll need, what family support they'll need in that process to apply for aid for college and scholarships. There's also several community events that we bring our participants' attention to that happen outside of our service center. But internally, the FAFSA event is one big one that we have each year. As far as when do we bring community partners in, if we have a lot of participants that are kind of asking one-off questions to our staff, then we'll reach out to a community partner and think of what financial literacy activities or games they could provide to our participants that is relevant, that is engaging, and then again connects our participants to a community partner that they can also build that trusting, supporting relationship with. As far as like group presentations, if we have a group or a cohort going through a training together, we'll cover some financial literacy topics in that group enrollment or before they start their employment or subsidized training activity. if we have a large group of participants that are getting ready to get hired in at a local employer, we touch base with them then, because we know that once they, sometimes once they get connected with a local employer, we see them a little less frequently. So we want to make sure that we're leaving them with some skills and tools they can use towards their goal of self-sufficiency.
That's great, Donnie. I especially like that you're bringing these folks all together when there's a group of people going to a new employer, because it also helps employers remember how important financial literacy is for all of their employees. And as you mentioned earlier, for all of us, this is a lifelong journey. And so thank you very much. Kathy and Alan, one of the questions that came in says you mentioned plans to achieve self-support. Can you share with us how you use those plans and maybe what an outcome has been?
I would be glad to take this question because I think that past plans are one of the least used work incentives that have the most benefit to someone who is on SSI. So I think I'll explain it through Rachel's story. And Rachel was a young woman who had graduated with her bachelor's degree in theater production and came into CDO workforce looking for help. And she was identified as a dual beneficiary, which means she receives both Social Security disability and SSI, so she was referred to me. And she told me that she had been looking for work for over 2 years and was unsuccessful. And that's not particularly surprising because her degree was in theater production and we live in Oneonta, New York. But we enrolled her in some workshops and we provided support for her job search. And one of the things we knew was that she didn't have a driver's license and she wanted one. So we were able to pay for her permit and her driving lessons, and she got her driver's license within a month. And that turned out to be an important thing because she obtained a seasonal job at a local museum in Cooperstown. And in this area, we have very limited public transportation. She was able to take a bus from Oneonta to Cooperstown, but she had to arrive 90 minutes early in order to walk almost a mile to where the museum she worked at was. And you can imagine that this was very exhausting, especially during the heat of the summer. So we had talked about a past plan to get her a vehicle. And I helped her write this plan, and we submitted it. It was approved. And she was able to deposit half of her wages and all of her Social Security disability check each month. In exchange, she was allowed to keep the other half of her wages, and SSI increased her check to the full amount that an SSI participant was eligible for. So she was able to pay her bills and live off the SSI and the other half of her wages, while the PASS plan started to gain money. Putting that money in the PASS plan meant that her food stamps didn't change, her Medicaid didn't change because they did not count as a resource. After her summer job was complete, she came back to our office to apply for unemployment, but we have a temporary agency that was there, and they actually, before she ever got her first check, got her temporary employment over the winter. So she was able to still continue to put half her wages and that Social Security disability check in. And in 11 months, she had saved enough to purchase her dream car. She got a small used pink, if you can believe pink, hybrid car. She had a 24-month extended warranty on that car. She was able to purchase 4 snow tires, and she prepaid her first 6 months of insurance, all from the money that she saved in that PASS plan. And then she had a car when she returned to work that summer and was able to drive back and forth in like 30 minutes instead of the journey she was doing with public transportation.
Wow, that's an incredible story, Kathy. Not a small feat in understanding and applying for our PASS plan, but you certainly help people understand why it's so important. Before you step away from the mic, can you just quickly help people understand what the difference is between a PASS plan and an ABLE account?
Oh, for sure. ABLE accounts are savings accounts that are open to anybody who has a disability before the age of 26. So you don't need to be in receipt of Social Security in order to qualify for one of those accounts. A PASS plan is a work incentive for folks who receive SSI. You must be an SSI recipient. Now, some folks who get Social Security disability, as in the case of Rachel, we were able to, she had a small SSI check, but when we deposited that, she was able to receive full SSI. So there are ways to make people eligible for SSI, but that work incentive, that plan for achieving self-support is only available to people who qualify for SSI. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. And on that note, we're at the hour. I want to thank you all, Donnie, Ellen, and Kathy, and thank you to Jennifer Sheehy and the Department of Labor for being with us today. And thank you to all of you on the line. I know we went just a little bit over, but you had a lot of great questions. We got a lot of great information. I hope you'll join us for our next two-part webinar series. It will be on ensuring equal opportunity in the workforce development system during COVID-19. Part 1 will take place on Thursday, May 14th from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. Part 2 will take place on Thursday, May 21st from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. And again, this will be a two-part series that will provide information, strategies, and resources on Section 188's equal opportunity and non-discrimination practices. I want to stop here and say thank you to all